Hi, so in this session I'm going to make a raspberry mousse. It can be used, this recipe can be used for any berries at all. So I'm going to start by putting a base into my mousse. So what I've done here, I've made a chiffon sponge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple of individual, make an individual mousse, just so you see an individual mousse. So I'm going to cut a ring out of that. Lay that into the bottom. The mousse ring has also been lined with cling film. And then I'm going to make a big square like a Delice using the raspberry mousse. So I'm just going to cut out a square from that as well. So again, lined with cling film just to make sure none of the mousse escapes. So the chiffons, lay it into the bottom. I've allowed that chiffon to go completely cold. In fact, I made it yesterday, it keeps fine. So now I've got my base ready for my mousse. So what I've done is I've made like a little raspberry syrup here. So all I've done is I've used 45 grams of sugar, 45 grams of water, and then 10 grams of raspberry puree. Just made a little syrup. If I wanted to, I could use a bit of raspberry liqueur in there, or a bit of vodka, something like that, just to make it slightly alcoholic. This one I'm keeping alcohol free. And what I'm going to do, just to give another dimension to my Delice or my mousse, I'm just going to use a little bit of that syrup. Syrup into my sponge just to moisten it up a little bit. So a couple of dabs in there. That one, and now just leave those on the side to soak. So now I'm going to start on my mousse. So really simple to make this mousse. I've got my 50 grams of sugar in a saucepan. I've got my 200 grams of puree. I'm going to add those to the saucepan. I've got my gelatine already bloomed and then drained, just ready to go. Just going to mix that sugar and raspberry puree together and just heat it up. Okay, so just have ready as well, I've got an ice bath. Just like if I was making a bava, I'm going to heat up this puree and sugar. Then add my gelatine, make sure it's dissolved, and then I want to cool it to 35 degrees before I add my cream. So what I'm going to do, just while I'm waiting, I'm going to just gently whip up my cream. Again, I don't want this over whisked. A good figure of 8 motion, and just get this up to the ribbon stage. So my cream's ready, ribbon stage. What I want to do is just make sure it's hot enough that the gelatine melts, but I'm not worried about boiling this or simmering it or anything like that. I can see it's just about to come to a simmer, so I can just remove that from the heat. Add the gelatine straight to the saucepan. Now I'm just going to move this around. Make sure your gelatine's completely melted, and then pour that into a bowl. So I want this mixture to cool to 35 degrees before I add the cream. So again, easiest way to control this, make sure you've got it even. The puree naturally cool, because otherwise what we'll end up doing is oversetting it, and then we'll have to warm it back through. So I'm just going to probe it, have it over an ice bath, and it should just come down quite rapidly. So it says 32 degrees, so it's definitely cold enough. Take that off the water bath. Now what I'm going to do, add my cream. So as per usual, what I don't want to do, I don't want to fold this with a spatula. What I want to do is fold this in using the balloon whisk. Should get it all in. It's all going to help aerate. Have a lovely intense flavour, this mousse. It's got a stronger flavour if you're making a bavarois. You're not making a creme anglaise first. This is just fruit puree, sugar and your gelatine. Just lovely dark, intense. Colour. Lovely. And so now what I'm going to do, I'll just pour a little bit into my individual mousse ring. And then the rest I'm going to just pour into the big one, because I'm going to then make a Delice. Give them a little shake just to level them off. And now they'll go in the fridge in the glass chiller ready to set, and then we can put the glaze on. So I'm now going to make the glaze ready for my raspberry mousse. This is going to be a sugar syrup that then I add puree and gelatine to, and then cool, ready to pour onto my set mousse. So just as always, I just need to give that a little stir, because the sugar can sit on the bottom with water, so just on a gentle heat to melt. There's also, so I've got in there sugar, water and glucose. I'm just going to bring that up to heat, just so it dissolves. And again, all I need to do, I don't need to make that boil. What I need to do is let that heat enough that it actually melts the gelatine. But other than that, I can then cool it. I need to cool it to 35 degrees, and then I can pour it over my mousse. If I have it too hot when I pour it over the mousse, what it will do is it will melt a hole into the top of the mousse, and then the cream in the mousse will start to mix with the glaze, and you have a really untidy, uneven finish, really messy finish. So the sugar's now dissolved. I'm just going to put it onto a warmer heat just to bring it up to temperature, just so it can make sure it melts the gelatine. Just want to see it steaming really. Okay, so I'm going to add the gelatine. Let that dissolve, make sure it's well mixed. stir in my puree, and then all I'm going to do, just to make sure there's no lumps or bumps, there's some gelatine in there, I'm just going to pass it. So now I've got my glaze, I'm just going to probe it just to see what temperature it is. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to set it in this ice bath just to allow it to cool. So there we go, it's hit 30 degrees. I know that's now cold enough. Just make sure I dry it off. You could do it in a bowl and then transfer it to a jug. Just cooled it in the jug, but what you want to make sure is that none of that water then drips onto your mousse. So what I'm going to do, pour a little bit on, and I can already see that it's thickened up. And then I'm going to pour the rest onto my mousse. Done that amount, that's all you need, just that amount is all you need just to cover your mousse. There, you've got it. I've now got my glaze on there. Now I'm just going to put those back in the fridge to set. So I'm now at the final stage, the decoration of my raspberry mousse. My glaze is set, it's all ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen it. So again, you've got to be really careful with this. Don't overdo it. Do it a little bit of time. If it's stuck, go back to it. Don't just really melt it. Burn the sides. So try and keep it all upright, twist it around, up and down, all the way around, and then that should just slide away like so. So there we've got our finished mousse. So we've got the Giconde base, we've got the raspberry mousse, and then we've got the glaze on the top. So I've got some different bits and pieces to garnish. I've got some white chocolate pistachio crunch here. I've got some pistachios that have been blended down, some crystallised pistachios, and then I've just got a little bit of chopped up and crumbed freeze-dried raspberry. What I'm going to do now is I've also got a whipped mascarpone ganache, which I'm going to put on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it so it's at an angle, so like about a 45-degree angle. What that's going to do is that means that when it pipes out, it's going to pipe out like a Saint-Honoré nozzle. So I'm just going to twist it in my hand so all the pressure comes from above. Now what I'm going to do, just to garnish it up from one side to the other, when you're doing this, pull it to an extreme, so almost too far, and then it'll pull back on itself. And it does take practice. Just like that, it's ready to go. And now I can just look at the decoration. So it's got a nice even amount going over it. Perhaps could have just gone more into the corners, but I quite like that finish. So what I'm going to do is I just want some different textures and things like that on there now. So some different bites. So you've got that nice rich mousse. You've got the sharpness coming from the glaze. And what I'm going to do is just going to get a little bit of that crunch. Just chop it up so it's like a little bit of a crumb on there. I don't want to go overboard with it. So just a little bit here and there. So I've just got some different textures on the board. So just a dot about here and there. Get that right in view of the screen. bits of white chocolate on there. If I wanted to, I could even use a little bit of raspberry coulis on there, or better even a raspberry gel. Getting that about here and there. Okay. And then some of the crystallized pistachios. It's going to add a really nice crunch to the eating the final mousse. Like that. A little bit more of the nice bright green pistachio. And then just to really bring out that colour, bring out the colour of green pistachio, I'm now going to add that last bit of the raspberry and just really highlight and clash against that green and look really, really lovely. And you need a tiny little bit just to bring out that colour. Last few bits, just to use them up. And there we have it, my raspberry Delice.